Hello and welcome to episode 38 of the Mr. Douglass Sports Show. I am your host as always, Corey Douglas, and we have reached the halfway point or the all-star break of the NBA season. So this is a perfect time to kind of go over what's happened in the first half, go over kind of the standings, and then I'm going to get into the all-star weekend. Of course, we had the draft last night where Team LeBron selected his team and KD selected his team, so I'm going to go over a little bit of that. And I'm also going to take you into James Harden's return to Houston, as well as get into the Russ Wilson versus Dak Prescott stuff. So like I said, it's NBA All-Star Weekend. It's here. As much as the players did not want to participate in it, the NBA said, guess what? We're having it in Atlanta. We're going to raise a lot of money for the HBCU community. And, we're going to have this game and collect this money. But before I get into everything that's going to take place, again, this is going to be an all-star weekend like we haven't seen before. Like I said, they're going to do the skills competition, the three-point contest before the game on Sunday. They're going to start the game, play the first half, and then at halftime of the all-star game, they are going to have the dunk contest. There's only 3 participants this year because the NBA had a lot of trouble with actually getting people want to participate in these events this weekend. So when I look at the NBA standings, we'll start with the Eastern Conference. The 6 playoff teams plus the 4 teams that are in contention for the play-in style. Remember, this isn't just the typical 1 through 8 get in the playoffs. This is going to be 1 through 6 are secure, and then 7 and 8 will have to battle it out with 9 and 10 to make the actual playoffs. So right now, I look at it, we have 6 locks in the NBA, and it's not the top 6 teams in the Eastern Conference the way it shakes out. So I think you have the 3 obvious teams that are going to make the playoffs, no ifs, ands, or buts about it. And that is the Philadelphia 76ers, the Brooklyn Nets, and the Milwaukee Bucks. But also on the teams that I expect that will definitely be in the playoffs are the Boston Celtics, who have played really inconsistent ball. And I think they are the most disappointing team so far in the NBA through the first half. Then you have the Miami Heat. They are sitting right now at the 6th seed. And they've been through a whole lot of COVID stuff. They started out the season 6-12. Right now they currently sit at 18-18. So they've played really good ball. And Jimmy Butler's come back, relatively healthy. He's missed a couple games here and there. But they have really turned it on. And then my 6th and final team that I have as a lock to make the Eastern Conference playoffs is the Toronto Raptors. That's another team that has really started out slow. They got it together, started playing some of the best basketball in the Eastern Conference. Then now going into the break, they were dealing with their own COVID situation, so they lost a couple of games late in the first half. So that leaves 2 spots that are going to be up for grabs in the East. And of those teams, I think that the New York Knicks will be in contention, the Charlotte Hornets, the Washington Wizards, and the Knicks are currently at the 5 seed in the Eastern Conference, with the Hornets sitting at 7. I think the New York Knicks will make the playoffs. I don't consider them a lock, but I think Washington overtakes Charlotte. If you look at what Washington's been doing, yeah, they sit at 14-20 overall for the record. But remember, they started out 2-8. They dealt with a whole slew of COVID issues, and recently they have started getting healthier and they are starting to play a lot better. Before the break, they went through a stretch where they won 8 out of 11 games, including wins against the Denver Nuggets, the Boston Celtics, the Clippers, Portland, Clippers in the game before the All-Star break. So I think Washington will continue that trend, and I think they will make the playoffs. So my final prediction for the second half of the season is the Philadelphia 76ers, Brooklyn Nets, Milwaukee Bucks, Celtics, Knicks, Heat, Raptors, and Washington Wizards will be the 8 that make up the Eastern Conference. And then when you go over to the Western Conference, I don't think there's as much in question for this. So I think there's 7 locks over here. You have the Utah Jazz, the Phoenix Suns, the Lakers and the Clippers, the Portland Trail Blazers, and the Denver Nuggets. And I am throwing the Dallas Mavericks in there because they are a playoff team. Again, they're another one of those teams that has went through the COVID situation. Porzingis has missed a handful of games, and they've had the hardest schedule in the league to this point in the season. That's going to even out in the second half. Although they will be playing a lot of back-to-backs. They play the most back-to-backs in the NBA in the second half with 10. But then the 8th and final playoff spot, I think, is going to come down to the San Antonio Spurs, the Golden State Warriors, and the Memphis Grizzlies. And just based off the first half and what I know, I think Golden State will get there if Draymond and Steph can stay healthy. Golden State is a completely different team when you look at when Draymond Green is on the court versus when he is off the court. So he is still a difference making, and I think he frees up a lot of actions for Steph Curry. So yeah, I think Golden State will take that 8th and final playoff spot. So that's the way I see the second half shaking out as far as the standings go. I think if you had to give an MVP right now, you would have to give it to Joel Embiid. He's coming fresh off a performance where he gave Rudy Gobert, who a lot of people have as the favorite for Defensive Player of the Year. He gave him 40 points and 19 rebounds in a game they played right on Wednesday. And also what took place on Wednesday is James Harden made his return to Houston. And that came on the heels of the Houston Rockets announcing that they would be retiring James Harden's number 13. So no one will ever wear the number 13 for the Houston Rockets again. And I have to say, initially, I was a little bit thrown off by that. I wasn't really sure why they were doing this, especially the timing of it. So I still have a question about the timing of it. You know, he literally just quit on y'all within a couple of months, and you're already saying his jersey is going up into the Raptors. He didn't win a championship there. So those were all my initial thoughts. But then when I went to look at the actual numbers that he accumulated in Houston, I get it. I mean, he's top 10 in mostly every single category you can think of, and he's just sitting right outside the top 5 in games played in Houston Rockets history at 6th. So I get why they're doing it. And of course, in his return, I wish there was going to be, you know, a full arena full of fans there to really give James Harden the full experience of going back to Houston, because I know if I was a Houston fan, I would feel some type of way about his exit and kind of the way he went about that. But of course, he gets the triple-double. The Brooklyn Nets win the game and send Houston to their 13th loss in a row, which is just crazy. I feel sorry for Stephen Silas over there having to deal with all that he's had to deal with in this first half of the season. So getting into the All-Star Weekend. Of course, this weekend was not supposed to happen. And like I mentioned at the top of the show, this is going to look unlike anything we've ever seen from the All-Star Game or All-Star Weekend standpoint. All the events are taking place on Sunday. And I have to say, when they first announced that the NBA All-Star Game was happening, I didn't understand why they were doing that. And then you have a lot of players like LeBron, Giannis, you know, some of these other players, high-profile players, spoke out about not wanting to go to Atlanta. They thought they were going to have a week off. That didn't happen. But I have to say, this is one of the more hilarious, I guess, lineups when you talk about the skills contest, the dunk contest, and the three-point contest. Of those three, I'm most excited about the three-point contest. So let's just go ahead and go over the contestants for each contest and kind of predict a winner here. So for the skills contest, you have Luka, Chris Paul, Robert Covington somehow. I'm not really sure how he got in this, but Julius Randle, Domantas Sabonis from Indiana, and Nikola Vucevic from Orlando. And I'm going to go with Julius Randle to win this, and that is strictly based off he is going to be motivated. This is his first All-Star appearance this weekend, and I think he's going to come out and really take it seriously, because if you watch the skills contest in previous years, the biggest knock on these players is they go through it kind of cool and casual. I don't see Julius Randle do anything on a basketball court that is cool and casual, so I'll pick Julius Randle there. The three-point contest features Devin Booker, Jaylen Brown, Steph Curry, Zach LaVine, Donovan Mitchell, and Tatum. Not sure why Donovan Mitchell and Tatum are in this. I don't think of them as, you know, knockdown three-point shooters. But I'm going to pick Steph Curry in this one. Obviously, he's the best shooter of all time. And, he kind of gets in these things and shows out. It's just a matter of, if it's his day or not. Obviously, we know, like I said, he's the best shooter in NBA history. And the most hilarious dunk contestants I've ever seen in the dunk contest. Obviously, the dunk contest in general is a disaster and terrible. And then you throw these 3 contestants out there, and this isn't going to help things. So the 3 contestants are Cassius Stanley from Indiana, rookie Obi Toppin from the Knicks, and then Anthony Simons from the Portland Trailblazers. And I have no idea who's going to win this. I'm not going to watch this. And this is actually going to be at halftime of the All-Star game, which is almost hilarious in itself. I'm going to go with the rookie from the Knicks, Obi Toppin. Yeah, I mean, I don't really have a reason or rhyme or reason as to why I'm picking him. But he's the most, I guess, intriguing name that's going to be in this contest. So I'm going to pick him. And then, like I mentioned, Team LeBron and KD, they picked their opponents on Thursday night on TNT. And not a whole lot of surprises other than when you look at Team LeBron, his team looks absolutely stacked. So, of course, of the starters, his first pick was Giannis. Can't argue that. His second pick was Steph Curry. Third pick was Luka. And then his fourth pick out of the starter pool was Nikola Jokic from Denver. So you have a starting 5 of LeBron, Steph Curry, Luka, Giannis, and Jokic. Insane. That is disgusting. And then coming off the bench, you got Dame Dollar, Dame Lillard, Ben Simmons, Chris Paul, Jaylen Brown, Paul George, Sabonis. And then his last pick was Rudy Gobert. And I think that is hilarious just because Gobert and then Donovan Mitchell on KD's team, they were both last. And then LeBron was clowning on Utah, saying even when Karl Malone and John Stockton were there, nobody was playing with the Utah Jazz on the video games. It just is what it is. And I know Utah's kind of running with this nobody wants us to win, nobody respects us narrative, which I think is hilarious. And it just continued with the All-Star pick. But going over to KD's team, and I think what threw this whole draft off is KD had to pick Kyrie. So he took Kyrie first, Joel Embiid second, Kawhi third, Tatum and then Beal were the last on the boards as the starters. And because KD's not playing, Jason Tatum moved to the starters. And then you look at the reserves, you got James Harden, Devin Booker, who replaced AD. You got Zion was the third pick out of the reserve pool, which kind of surprised me. Zach LaVine, Julius Randle, Vucevic, and Donovan Mitchell. So those are the rosters. And like I said, on paper, LeBron's team looks insane. And I would expect them to win the game. But again, this is the All-Star game. And it's just a matter of who takes it serious at the end and kind of who's in a better position when they take it serious. That is All-Star Weekend. Again, that is going to be on Sunday. I believe the coverage starts at 4 p.m. Central Time. I could be off on that. I'm not sure how much of this I'll even watch. I imagine I'll probably check out some of the game, but other than that, not really too excited or feel one way or the other about the All-Star Weekend. That is all I have for the NBA. Now I want to talk about the Russell Wilson situation in Seattle, and is it possible for Russell Wilson to end up as the next Dallas Cowboys quarterback? So I think you have to start with how the situation got to this point. So when you look at Russell Wilson's season in 2020, you remember his first 3 games, he was the far and away favorite to win the MVP. Yeah, it was only 3 games, but the let Russ cook movement was just off and running. And then if you remember, things really slowed down, not only for Russell Wilson, but it slowed down for the whole Seattle offense. And how did we get to that point? So there's been several stories. I think I even mentioned one of the stories last week on that episode where Russell Wilson wants to be heard. He wants a voice in the Seattle organization. He feels like he should have more input on player personnel. game planning, and Seattle's just not having it. Russell Wilson views himself higher than Seattle views him. So then you get to throughout the season, I mentioned Russell Wilson slows down. In the second half, he just becomes a turnover machine. He's turning the ball over like we've never seen Russell Wilson turn the ball over before. They kind of flame out. They go one and done in the playoffs by losing to the Los Angeles Rams. And that threw Pete Carroll off. Reports say Pete Carroll doesn't believe in Russell Wilson as the focal point of the offense. He wants to get back to running the football, playing solid defense, because that's what he had success with back when the Seattle had the Legion of Boom, with Richard Sherman, Cam Chancellor, Earl Thomas, Bobby Wagner, and just the list goes on. So he wants to get back to that style of play. Russell Wilson's like, no, I want to be able to lead this team, and I want to be able to have input. So that's how we get to this point. There's a disconnect between what the front office believes is successful versus what Russell Wilson wants his career to evolve or continue to evolve into. And when you look at Russell Wilson's career numbers, he's made the playoffs 8 out of 9 years. He has a record of 98, 45, and 1 over his career. And you have to think about this. This is mostly on his back because Russell Wilson hasn't had an offensive line most of his career. He didn't have any weapons or consistent weapons until DK Metcalf the last couple of years. And DK Metcalf's rookie year wasn't as good as his second year. So obviously he's evolving into that. Tyler Lockett, you just don't know what you're going to get. You could get 200 yards and 3 touchdowns from him one week, and then you'll get 2 catches and 14 yards the next week. So that is playing a role in Russell Wilson's mind because, like I said, he's made the playoffs 8 out of 9 years. And Seattle hasn't always helped him. I think of one move just off the top of my head where they traded Max Unger, the center, to New Orleans for Jimmy Graham, and then they get Jimmy Graham and don't know how to use him. Part of that was Jimmy Graham being washed, but part of that was also Seattle just not knowing what they're doing. Not his style, their style of offense not fitting Jimmy Graham's style of play. So then that's where the Cowboys come into the mix. Of course, the Cowboys have until Tuesday to put the franchise tag on Dak Prescott. I said last week, I think this deal needs to be done by Tuesday, or I don't think there's a reason why Dak signs an extension before the July 15th deadline, which means he plays his last year on the tag, making around $38 million, and he hits free agency next offseason because the franchise tag next offseason, if he franchised Dak for the 3rd straight year, you're looking at $50 million. That being said, I don't see a deal getting done by Tuesday, which means the Cowboys have to take a look at, putting out flyers. Would Dak be okay with going to this team? Because even though Dak is under kind of a 1-year contract under the franchise tag or expected to be under that, that is essentially a no trade clause because no team is going to give up valuable resources to a guy that could be leaving after the year. So when you look at the situation, if you're going to lose Dak next offseason for nothing, you have to see what's out there on the market, find a suitor for him that he would be interested in going to, and kind of find that next quarterback that you actually believe in, and it doesn't take 3 years to come up with a contract extension. So that's where the conversation begins with Russell Wilson and the Cowboys, and kind of why, the timelines kind of match up as to, where Russell Wilson could be a fit. Now, I will say, I don't see Russell Wilson being a Dallas Cowboys quarterback, but I don't see Russell Wilson in Seattle long term. Diana Rossini from ESPN says Russell Wilson, or the Seahawks have started taking calls on Russell Wilson. So that tells me, they're open to the idea of trading him. So just like I said, hypothetical, if I had the choice between Dak and Russell Wilson, who am I taking personally? The answer for me is a pretty easy Russell Wilson. So there's a couple different angles from this that you can go in, and I get both sides of the argument. But I'm taking Russell Wilson because, number one, I think he's a better quarterback. I think he's proven more with less, and that's what makes him the better quarterback. And his contract is remaining is 3 years and $26 million per season, which if you sign Dak, you're giving him 3-4 years at $40+ million. And let's be fair, Dak Prescott has not proven that he can win when the circumstances aren't perfect. So I know everybody wants to throw out the first 4 games, and he was on an unbelievable pace, but they're leaving out the context of that. The Cowboys were trailing by 14-17, and even sometimes 20+ points in these games in 2020 before he got hurt. That is not a slight at Dak saying he's not a good quarterback. That is just pointing out the circumstances as to why his numbers were boasted to that, record-breaking pace. So Dak is younger, obviously, but he is coming off that severe ankle injury. And we still are not for sure, how serious that injury is. There's various reports out there. Some saying that he's recovering nicely. And then, like I said, there's a couple that say, man, slow down. We're not sure about that. But at the end of the day, I'm taking Russell Wilson over Dak Prescott. Again, probably won't happen, but that's just my 2 cents on that. Like I said, we'll get to the deadline on Tuesday as far as the Cowboys having to place a franchise tag on Dak Prescott, and we'll see how it shakes out from there. But that is all I have for today's episode. That concludes episode 38 of the Mr. Douglass Sports Show. Until next time, salute.